class, and welcome to Math Minutes video lesson number 39. We're going to start looking at how to manage negative exponents. So turn to your notebooks to page 30 and we will get started. Negative exponents. The term 6 to the negative 2 is an example of what negative exponents look like. A negative exponent does not make the term a negative number, but instead tells us to modify the base. 6 to the negative 2 becomes 1 over 6 squared, which would equal 1 over 36 because 6 times 6 is 36. So a negative exponent causes the base number to shift to the opposite of where it started. In the example above, the exponent started as the numerator and moved to the denominator position, and the exponent became positive. If a negative exponent is in the denominator position, it would switch to the numerator. So let's take a look at some practice problems. If we have 4 to the negative third, well, let's look at what happens with our steps. This is a numerator. It doesn't look like it, but you know that any whole number we can make look like a fraction by putting a 1 underneath it. Well, what that means is that now the 4 is going to move to the bottom position, and there's the negative 3 becomes a positive 3. And what's left up there is we put a 1 to indicate that this has become a denominator. So let's look at another one. What if we had 17 to the negative 2? Well, that's going to equal 1 becomes the numerator, 17 moves below, and the negative 2 becomes positive. Our third example, what if we had x to the negative fifth? Well, x is going to move down to the denominator, and our negative 5 is going to become a positive 5. So those are the general rules. Let's do some more practice together. We can take a to the negative third. If you look at it that way, think of it as putting a 1 underneath it if you have to. Move the 1 to the top. The a moves down to the denominator, and the 3 becomes positive. What if we had, though, a coefficient in front of that a? If we had 2a to the negative third, what the exponent is affecting is only the a. So the 2 remains in the numerator, but the a is the one that gets moved to the denominator, and the negative 3 becomes a positive 3. Okay, the difference would be, what if we had 2a to the negative third and all of it is in parentheses? Well, that means the negative 3 is being distributed to both the 2 and the a. What that means is the whole thing now is going to move below and become the 3 is, let me do an intermediate step. I jumped too soon. This really becomes, this negative 3 gets distributed to both terms. It becomes 2 to the negative 3 and a to the negative 3. Now each of those gets to move. It becomes 1 over 2 cubed a cubed. So it's going to go to both terms and they both become positive. One more step then would be to go ahead and multiply this out. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. This really equals 1 over 8a cubed. We'll do more of that in lessons to come. Let's take a look at another example that might be just a little more complicated as we practice our steps. 2 over x to the negative 2. Well, nothing's happening to this 2, so that's just going to remain there. But now this x is the denominator, but you see how it has a negative exponent. So it's going to move up to here, which is going to make it x, and the negative exponent becomes positive. So 2 over x to the negative 2 becomes 2x squared. Okay, how about 4 over xy to the negative 3? Okay, the 4 stays there, nothing's happening to it. The x is going to stay put also because it's not in parentheses. So x, there's nothing happening to the x. It really has like a 1, and that's a positive, so it stays there. But what's moving is the y. The y is now going to move upstairs, and its negative exponent becomes positive. So this becomes 4y cubed over x. And let's just do one more. Let's do one like this, x over y to the negative 2. Now, this negative exponent is being distributed to both the numerator and the denominator, so our first step would be to make it, let's distribute that negative 2 to both the x and the y. And what's going to happen to each of these, well, the x is now, if it started as the numerator, it's going to move to the denominator, and its exponent becomes positive. And same thing happens here. The y starts at the denominator, but it's going to move up to the numerator, and its exponent becomes positive as well. There you have it, negative exponents.